ezri meim Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz aleyitein lamot raglecha al yanum shomerecha in Elohenu v'lo ishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomerecha Adonai etzilecha aleyad yeminecha yamam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmor et tzedekcha uvohecha me'ata ve'ad olam.
Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bino deshayar b'tzeini amei menuchot yinahaleni. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He has me lie down in green pastures, he leads me beside the still waters. He guides me on paths of righteousness, he revives my soul for the sake of his glory. Though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I shall fear no harm, as you were with me. Your staff and rod do comfort me. You set a table on the sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows with your blessings. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, that I may abide in the house of the Lord forever. In Jewish tradition, there's an interesting guide of how we're supposed to refer to important people in our lives. Not surprisingly, after all, Judaism is obsessed to the nth degree as to how it can touch our lives in a strategy of finding meaningfulness in almost every moment that we live. In particular, when we refer to our parents, Jewish tradition says that we don't simply refer to a mother or father as mom or dad or mother or father. But in Hebrew, the formulation is very specific and particular. It says that you're supposed to refer to your father as Avi Mori, my father, my teacher, or a mother as Imi Morati, my mother, my teacher. And this is not simply meant to give the proper measure of respect to a parent, someone who raises you from your earliest moments and guides you into your life. But there's a gentle little flipping you can do with this. The formulation also suggests that a teacher is also like a parent. And that if you are blessed and fortunate in life, you may come to realize that you've had a number of parents, One set without your choosing, other sets by your choosing, of people who have guided and supported and nurtured you in your life. Socrates once wrote that if you change the story, if you change the names, the story is yours. But the truth is, when you think of Mendel's story, if you put your name into his story, the story might not be yours. The story that he always loved to tell me was the little boy growing up in St. Thomas. You know the joke, they couldn't say Mendel, so they said Wendell. He loved that story. All the way to his finish point. We're having this moment here in the synagogue that was incredibly important and rich in his life, to the point that he was the president of this congregation, which speaks volumes about the enormous leadership and care he had not only for himself and his family, that was the absolute center of his gravity, but also for the community that he lived in, the Jewish community and the wider community of faith and everywhere else. In short, Mendel cared about everybody. I know that his story is filled, and I'm sure many of you in this room can personally attest to this, of moments where Mendel stepped in and did something extraordinary that you never forgot. A scholarship that made its way to you, a graduation that he would go out and buy a bag, your first litigator's bag. And because even rabbis need rabbis, Mendel was also present for me in certain moments in my life that I knew that there was only one person I could actually call, and it was him. And the answer was always the same. Rabbi, come on over. One evening I saw him at a dinner. It was here actually in the shul. He was always impeccably dressed. And I said to him, offhandedly actually, I said, I love your tie. Before the evening was over, he came over to me and removed the tie from himself, and he gave it to me. I'm wearing it now. Although many years have passed since he gifted me with this tie, and many ties have come and gone in and out of my closet, this one will forever remain there. As a rabbi, and I know I speak for the cantor, we are blessed with many, many thousands of people that come in and out of our lives, people that we are called to care for and love. But on this afternoon, there's also a friend that we have to pay tribute to. And as difficult and challenging as that is, it is an honor that I am blessed that I have been entrusted with. And this morning, as I thought, the great losses often lead us to search for great words. I also thought that isn't it simpler, better, that we use simple words, because it makes them more real. And so I do not believe that we need to idealize in death what Mendel was in life. Let it be that he is remembered as a good and decent man who saw wrong and tried to right it, who saw pain and tried to heal it, who saw life and tried to make some good of it. He will be deeply missed by me personally, and I know by all of you. Yehei zichrono livracha. May his memory forever be a blessing to those of us who were blessed, fortunate, to have been touched by his remarkable heart. There are a number of family members who wish to speak. It's my honor first to call upon his son, Stephen.
Giving a eulogy about Mendel Green, my father, husband, grandfather, uncle, and brother, is on the one hand an easy privilege, but on the other hand, one of the most difficult tasks I've ever been given. Our father was born in St. Thomas, Ontario, a small town outside of London, Ontario, on May the 3rd, 1936. My grandparents and aunts were the only Jewish family living there. It was this small town upbringing that planted the seed of how important giving and respecting others was. It created the foundation of our father's character that he emulated throughout his personal and professional life. He eventually assisted his parents in creating the town's largest furniture store called Green's Fine Furniture. Through the encouragement of my grandparents, he moved to Toronto, where he went to Osgoode Hall Law School. During his studies to become a lawyer, he was provided with my mother's telephone number. He got the nerve up, he asked her out, and they got married. The first child, born 15 days after my mother turned 20. So, with a screaming infant who would constantly interfere with my dad's studying for the bar, he became a lawyer. He articled with Irving Himmel, whose practice was concentrated on criminal law. At that time, the law firm assisted the police association. Many of the police officers had family living in Italy. Eventually, Irving asked him to help some of the officers who wanted to bring their family here from Italy, and also asked him to assist 12 Greek ship jumpers who arrived in Canada. Our father knew nothing about immigration, but he figured it out, and he assisted all those people in arriving in Canada. The rewards he saw from helping those individuals come to Canada and flourish created a fire in his belly to help others. This newfound desire to help people make their lives better in Canada became the building blocks of what Green and Spiegel has become. When Green and Spiegel was established, it offered all the disciplines of the law. Our father, however, only concentrated on immigration. He assisted in creating the Association of Immigration Lawyers in 1978, and in 1980, that association merged with the Canadian Bar Association and is currently known as the Citizenship and Immigration Section. There are so many points of celebration and recognition of my father's life. To receive so many notes in the past 3 days from his colleagues in the immigration world expressing how our father was the mentor to them speaks to his legacy. He was always here to help any lawyer who needed help or guidance. Sometimes people would ask him, "Why are you always helping the so-called competitors?" He would always answer by saying, "There is enough for everyone, so why not help?" He has constantly been referred by other lawyers as their mentor, always there to answer and guide. Perhaps that is why so many people refer to him as the grandfather of immigration. Not only has he been the grandfather of immigration, but he has been the grandfather to the grandkids. His grandchildren were the real source of his joy and energy. I remember when Spencer was born. I had no idea, was he going to be a boy or girl? I ran down the hall at Mount Sinai Hospital after Spencer was born and could not wait to see the halo of joy around my father when he received the news about Spencer. That same halo that he showed on each birth of all of his grandchildren. When COVID arrived in Canada, it was about the same time our father's health significantly deteriorated. He moved up to his cottage, and at least one grandchild saw him every day. As many of you know, Evan and Esther live 4 doors away from our parents in Jackson's Point, and their family had the privilege of visiting and supporting my dad every day. The word community leadership and Mendel Green are synonymous. Helping out so many communities was as much a part of my father's persona as helping his family. Actually, the community was his family. He always told us that you receive so much from the community, you must always give back to it, be it through philanthropy or courtesy. His motto was, courtesy and kindness is the most valuable asset one has, and it costs nothing to share with others. So why not give it away? And he certainly did. On a professional level, he influenced government policy on both immigration and civil liberties. He was appointed by the Honorable Sergio Marchi to advise on the business immigration program. He taught at the Law Society and various law schools in Ontario. To say he championed so many changes to immigration policy would be an understatement. Outside his professional career, our father timelessly concentrated on his community service. He chaired the Beth Shalom Humanitarian Ward, where he granted the award to such notables as the Lieutenant Governor, the Governor General, the people of the United States, and many former prime ministers of this great country. He helped establish the first Chinese retirement home in Ontario based on the model of the Jewish retirement home Baycrest. He helped the Sikh community with assisting 174 Sikhs who arrived in Halifax and wanted to take a taxi to Toronto. I was with him during that time in Halifax, and his actions in representing the 174 Sikhs requesting refugee status resulted in the changing of Canada's immigration policy. Our father was, to all, someone to admire, someone to be proud about, someone to cry with, someone to learn from, and most importantly, someone to talk to. He was a true patriarch, not just to us, but all who knew him. This is his legacy. His legacy will live on through countless lives he has changed and touched. He's changed the face of Canada in so many ways, and we as Canadians owe him a great thank you. He truly was Canada's lifetime Minister of Immigration. Never will you meet a man in your life who has more faithfully lived to his values. Seeing so many of you here today to say goodbye to our dad just shows how loved and respected he was. He would shed many tears seeing all his friends and family here. Last but not least, Mom. When Dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, you did not waver in your support, not only to him, but to all of us. You knew how hard it was on all of us, and a day did not go by without you thanking us. You and Dad were a team for 63 years, and he used to always say, you both belong in a museum. Through your support to Dad, you have shown all people around you how to share one's love towards a husband and to support him through the tough times. We thank you for showing us that. I used to brag to everyone how Evan, Shoshana, and I had the chance to say good morning to our dad every single day of our life. Well, now, of course, we will miss him. But we are so grateful that unlike so many others, we had that chance. Dad, you will always be remembered as a mensch, which is, in Yiddish, someone that is admired, someone that is noble, and people look up to. This will be your legacy that all will know and cherish. So for Mr. Mendel the Mensch, we thank you for touching each and every person you met in such a way that there will always be a place in their hearts that say, thank you, Mendel. It will take time to fill that emptiness of your passing, but the memories that you have given us will eventually fill that void. Thank you, Mendel the Mensch.
Alexander, Jonathan.
Rabbi Aaron, Cantor Moses, friends and family. My name is Alexander, one of Helen and Mendel's grandchildren, and I'm honored to be here with my brother Jonathan to speak about our Papa Mendel on behalf of all of his grandchildren, whom he loved so much and who loved him the same: Spencer, Josh, Tyler, Charlie and Miles, Benjamin, Jacob, Alexander and Jonathan, and Hannah and Edward. I've been thinking a lot this weekend about how they don't make men like Papa Mendel anymore, but I don't think that's quite right. I don't know if they ever really made men like him. He was one of a kind. He was more than just a man to the people who knew him, and to his grandchildren especially. He was a presence. When he walked into a room, he filled it with warmth, intelligence, and laughter. And if someone in that room had the terrible misfortune of not yet knowing Mendel, he was quick to a classic Mendelism: an outstretched arm offering a handshake, and the exclamation, "Hi, I'm Mendel Green." He had a small town outlook that he carried with him his whole life. If he didn't know someone, he introduced himself with an earnestness and a genuine interest. Within minutes, it was as if he was speaking to an old friend. Our whole lives, we were in awe of our Papa Mendel. For just a few minutes, we wanted to talk about some of the things our Papa Mendel taught us. He taught us to be fiercely loyal to family, putting it above all else. His 63 years of marriage to the love of his life, Helen, our booby, taught us how to care for someone else and how to build and cherish a family. At dinners, he would frequently stand up and announce his devotion to Helen in a toast. "I love her more today than the day I married her." He loved his little sisters, Rochelle and Burl, deeply. He never missed a family event, no matter what else was going on. Helen and Mendel hosted seders for family, friends, and strangers alike for years. The room was always packed. No one was ever allowed to be alone. Papa Mendel was the first to call on birthdays, often at 6:45 a.m. on his way to work, telling us that all the flags downtown were green in our honor. He taught us to love life. With family, Papa Mendel's favorite place was his cottage on Malone Road in Jackson's Point, where he spent decades raising his own family, who would come back many times with their own children years later. Our summers at the cottage growing up were only full of laughter and happy memories, doing the things we loved. We fished with Papa, the self-proclaimed world's greatest fisherman. We helped pick comically large vegetables from his garden. We learned how to drive on the roads of Jackson's Point in that hideous yellow pickup truck he owned for far too long. And most importantly, we learned what kind of person someone should strive to be. For Mendel Green, it was easy enough to teach us how. He was one of the best, and effortlessly he showed us. Growing up, if any of us were ever sad, he would tell us to put on our best Papa smile. And we would smile as hard as we could, and eventually we forgot whatever made us sad, and we got to go be happy spending time with him. We will miss Papa Mendel. We sometimes wonder how all of Papa Mendel's children and 7 of his grandchildren are lawyers or lawyers in training. I think it's because when we think about what a lawyer is, we all think about Papa and what he taught us. Our Papa Mendel had such a strong sense of justice, of doing what was right and fighting the good fight. As we grew up, we started to see more and learn more about his professional life. Papa Mendel was always so proud of his work as a lawyer. For him, the accolades, awards, and designations were never the most important thing, and that includes his prestigious Queen's Counsel appointment. His life was all about helping people, making time for them, no matter who they were. He cared for everyone and made every single person feel like they were special. Over the years, in typical Papa Mendel fashion, he would often work pro bono or refuse payment. Despite this, clients paid how they could. This included thank yous, wine, sweets, paintings, and more. Some particularly grateful clients from around the world named their children Mendel in honor of our grandfather. There are Mendels around the world. He treated everyone he met like family, and was so proud to work with his sons, daughter, daughter-in-law, sister, and grandchildren at the office. I have fond memories of going for business lunches with him just before his retirement, hearing his endless stories. He was the sharpest dressed person in the city, but if you complimented his tie, he would take it right off his neck and hand it to you on the spot. Papa would always joke that if we misbehaved, he would have us, his grandchildren, deported from Canada. We didn't even know what deportation was at that time, or that we couldn't be deported, but he laughed as we asked for him not to have us deported. Please, Papa, I'll behave, just don't deport me. Throughout my childhood, I would often meet people who realized I was Mendel Green's grandson and say how Mendel brought their family to Canada. There are tens of thousands of Canadians in Canada because of him. Modern Canada owes him a debt. Our Papa Mendel taught us how to be grateful in life. Everything was a gift to him, grateful for all of his blessings in life, and never for a moment taking anything for granted. We were so fortunate to spend the past few years with him. He never lost his optimism, his charm, and his smile. Here was a man who never ever frowned, even in the most trying of times. It was impossible to be in a bad mood around him. He lived every day to its fullest, caring for everyone around him with a love of life that can only be described as contagious. Whenever my grandfather wanted to honor a man, he would always say, he wasn't just a gentleman, he was a gentle man. Well, Papa, you were the gentlest of men, and we will always miss you.
Mendel will be remembered as the Bashert, the beloved husband to Helen, as the beloved son to the late Ida and Albert, Leim Shalom, as a father and father-in-law to Stephen and Arla, Evan and Esther, Shoshana and Michael, a dear brother and brother-in-law to Rochelle, Beryl, and the late David, Aleva Shalom, as a devoted grandfather to Spencer, Josh, Tyler, Charlie, and Miles, Benjamin, Jacob, Alexander, and Jonathan, Hannah, and Edward. Mendel will be remembered as a dear and loving friend to many of us, and we may never perhaps see the like of such of him again. Everyone, please rise.
Male rachamim shochen b'meromim hametzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei ha-shechina b'malot kedoshim utehorim kezohar harakia meirim umazhirim lenishmat Menachem Mendel ben Aharon v'Chaya Zlotav shehalach le'olamo b'gan Eden tehei menuchato בעל הרחמים, אז תראהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו. וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר
Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Menachem Mendel ben Aaron v'Chaya Zlata, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we now beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed while in this land of the living. May his soul forever be bound up in the lives of his loving and devoted family and friends. The Lord is his portion, and may he truly rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. I'd like to ask everyone if you could kindly remain in your seats, awaiting directions from the funeral directors. The funeral procession will be heading to Mount Sinai Memorial Park to the Beth Shalom Synagogue section.